A significant number of such traps, however, have human origins. Human-made constructions and discarded objects often inadvertently pose a threat to animals. This situation seems almost bizarre. It seems fake because it's hard to believe a goat could get its horns caught and hang so high on a power line. Yet, after a moment, we realize that the goat likely caught its horns somewhere else on the slope while trying to reach tasty leaves high up on a bush. It probably got its horns tangled in the wires and slid down them like on a zip line. In any case, it was an extraordinary coincidence, and it's unlikely that any of the constructors even considered such a possibility. In today's episode, we will look at similar situations, unusual predicaments that animals sometimes find themselves in, and from which, without human help, they would often be unable to escape. This incident took place in Russia's Yakutia. The threat to the animal was caused by a human-made object. This time, it was an abandoned metal barrel, likely containing something like grease or oil that attracted the animal. A young bear stuck its head into the barrel and would have certainly met its end if not for human intervention. The situation was very stressful for the animal. The bear couldn't see anything, its sense of smell was cut off, and every movement made it bang against everything, hearing only a metallic clanging. It was in a panic. No wonder it perceived the people trying to help as a threat. It was being tugged around, and the loud banging on its head was overwhelming. Despite the difficulties, people finally managed to free it. Here's another example of a threat to an animal from discarded human trash. This time, it involves a fishing line with a hook, which a gull likely got entangled with because of the bait on it. The gull, flying with a long piece of fishing line, eventually got caught on this thick wire and, in trying to free itself, got completely tangled up. Some people saved it while others contributed to its predicament. Here we see another example of the deadly threat that fishing line poses to animals. Here, the line wrapped so tightly around the manta ray's wing-like fin that it dug deep into its body. Divers freed this beautiful, majestic fish. However, the wound remained. And once again, the fishing line. These examples could be multiplied endlessly, and when we realize that the animals saved by humans are just a fraction, because most perish out of sight, it becomes clear how much damage and suffering this seemingly harmless, discarded, or intentionally abandoned fishing line causes in nature. When you see a piece of fishing line near the water, cut it, take it away, or even better, burn it, because only then can we be sure that it won't return to nature and pose a threat. Now, let's take a break from the damage caused by humans. In this case from Africa, humans were not at fault. This deadly trap was naturally formed in a drying, muddy waterhole. African buffaloes, although adapted to grazing by the edges of water bodies, wading through mud and silt, can sometimes be helpless. The waterhole, filled with thick sludge and with steep banks, became a death trap for several individuals. The rescue operation likely wouldn't have succeeded without the use of mechanical vehicles. African buffaloes are massive, very heavy animals. The weight of the heaviest individuals can reach almost a ton. The animals, however, do not show gratitude for being saved. When helping wild animals, one must be prepared for such possibilities. Here is a similar situation. Thick mud combined with steep banks is one of the most dangerous natural traps for wild animals, regardless of the climate zone. Hoofed animals love to roll in the mud. They do this to protect themselves from insect bites, get rid of parasites, and shield themselves from heat and sun. Even moose, like the African buffaloes, well adapted to wetland life, sometimes get stuck in swampy puddles. Water bodies can also be dangerous in winter. It's a specific season when cracking ice creates large holes, which are like wolf pits for animals. While in summer, an animal in a similar trap can survive for many days, in winter this time is dramatically shortened. Low temperatures quickly lead to hypothermia and death. In this case, help arrived just in time. People tried in every possible way to restore circulation in the half-frozen animal. It took a long time, but eventually it succeeded. The moose finally walked to the forest under its own power. Fences are another major issue when it comes to unintended threats to wildlife. Here we see a hare stuck between the bars of a fence. For a cat, once the head passes through, the rest of the body can also fit, but not for a hare. Here we see a rabbit, found by the property owner in the morning, caught in the fence. The animal had likely been in this position for many hours, and the thin wires tightly wrapped around its body effectively cut off blood flow to its legs. Numb limbs refused to move after being freed, but as the recording author notes, after some time, the rabbit regained mobility and hopped to the forest on its own. A regular net can also act as a trap for wild animals. It is stretchy and very strong, and often simply blocks the path for animals. Thus, it is easy for an animal to get its head or even its whole body stuck. This hedgehog was unusually stuck between the net and a wall. It squeezed behind the flexible net and even climbed to a considerable height for a hedgehog. The only way to free it was to cut the netting wires. I have shown this footage before in a shorts format, but once again, as it vividly illustrates how incredibly effective a trap for birds certain fences can be under certain circumstances. It's hard to believe that such a fence managed to catch so many magpies. It's even harder to explain this phenomenon. Likely, this mass catch is due to a snowball effect. When one magpie accidentally got stuck in the fence, it began calling for help. The others, drawn in or simply curious, perched on the spiked fence, sliding down and getting caught themselves. As a result, the magpies were calling for help in unison, attracting relatives from the entire area. Human-built fences are difficult to overcome because that's their function. Therefore, animals have a hard time getting out of such traps. Here, somehow, a wild boar managed to squeeze its wide head and shoulders through the narrow bars. But similarly to the earlier hare, its pelvis got stuck. The animal was in a predicament. Without specialized equipment used to bend metal during car accidents, it would be difficult to extract it. However, sometimes even completely natural landscape elements can be traps. A simple gap between two closely growing trees. Although it takes a lot of effort to get stuck in such a trap, as you can see, it is possible. Here is a similar situation. A huge wild boar is trapped between the trees. However, the circumstances were exceptional. The wild boar was being chased by hunters with dogs. It had to defend itself, flee, and seek shelter, and in the heat of the life or death struggle, it easily went astray. In such stress, there is no time for calculations. For wild animals, everyday trash often constitutes a trap. We've already talked about fishing line, but any discarded human objects can pose a threat. Even a simple box or coffee cup. Plastic items, bottles, take a very long time to decompose, even hundreds of years. During this time, discarded in the forest, they can be dangerous for animals. Animals do not understand their power or durability. They come from outside their world. Until now, they did not exist in nature. They only appeared with humans. Hence, nature is often helpless against them. Even a simple paper bag from feed, which a deer accidentally pulls over its head while searching for leftovers, can be deadly. It causes disorientation and cuts off the ability to satisfy hunger or thirst. How many animals didn't have the luck of this deer and perished from exhaustion in the forest? We don't know. A simple loop hung on a tree can also be a trap. Looking at such cases, one might get the impression that wild animals have a unique ability to get into trouble. However, we must remember that what is obvious to us may not be obvious to animals. We are the only bipedal animal in the world with grasping, free, and very dexterous forelimbs. We have exceptional manual abilities that animals do not possess. Thus, they often cannot handle situations that, from our perspective, seem trivial. Each species essentially lives in its own narrow slice of reality. It has unique abilities, senses, and skills suited to its habitat. For many animals, we, in certain situations, look like completely helpless, frail creatures. Let's remember this. Look broader, anticipate, and don't push animals into unnecessary trouble. Intelligence is, after all, our domain.